So we had some concerns about student privacy, which was sort of interesting to us because when we swipe the ID, we get this, or we swipe the card, we get the student's ID number, and that's pretty much all we get off the card. And the ID number is printed on the card, and it's something that you have to use to sign into your Bentley account in a couple of places. But for whatever reason, the administration on campus said that that was a private sort of identification number, and we couldn't store it without encrypting it. So we had to go through a couple of hoops to even get the numbers in the first place, and then once we had them, we had to sort of prove that we were doing this sufficient encryption so that nobody could get in and take them. For whatever reason, even though they're on our cards.
So Conner wrote an encryption algorithm in a weekend. It was great.
I wrote an encryption algorithm that is freely available online. So some of the other challenges that we had were that the framework that we use, Meteor, which is a phenomenal tool, is pretty young. It's still like version 0.6, and it doesn't support Windows, which made it really difficult for me as a Windows user to actually contribute to the code. So I had to dual boot Ubuntu and go through a bunch of hoops that way. For Nick on a Mac, it was easy, and it was so nice for me to just be like, oh, Nick, look at all the cool stuff you're doing, but I can't do any of it, yay! But anyway.
And of course, everyone's a critic. So we're using GitHub Issues as a way for the rest of the Sandbox tutors to make contributions to our project. While Conner and I so far have been the main ones writing the code, we've used GitHub Issues really for all of the tutors to come in and both suggest new features and report all of the bugs that they found. And they've actually done a really spectacularly good job of that. The minute we got it put up, we had a couple bugs and we were able to make some quick fixes. And we've had some really great suggestions for new features from the tutors. I think the other day we just had one that was, so every week we have to fill out the status reports for Mark, so Mark knows that we're actually doing work when we're at work. And one of the tutors asked, would it be possible if I could see the last 10 people that I tutored along with the description that I filled in, just so I could know that I tutored 5 people in this HTML assignment and 4 people in Excel and 1 person in this Java programming assignment, so I can use that data to help fill out my status report. I said, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And we put that together probably in a weekend, based entirely off other tutors' suggestions. So it's really just a great way. We've sort of made it even more collaborative than it already was.
All right, so we've got a couple minutes left, so just we want to run through sort of our next steps here. So the big point of us doing this assignment was, aside from this project, that makes it sound almost like it's schoolwork. But the big point, the big hoopla about all of this is that we wanted to get students, we wanted to get better statistics for our professors. So before, when students would swipe in, all we got was their ID, and we got some basic information from a tutor form that were 2 separate data sources that we had to manually merge and come up with some sort of insight from. So by bringing everything in-house, we get a lot more data, because we get when students come in, we get if they need help, we get what they need help with, we get how long before they were tutored, and we get when they leave. So we get this wealth of sort of temporal information that we can now use and aggregate all in-house to send out to professors to sort of give them real-time feedback about what they're doing in class and how their students are doing. Faculty access is sort of something that we're coming up with next. So right now we have all the data, but we don't have that visualization stuff to actually push it out to professors. So we're going to be using Google visualization tools for developers to actually present that data in a way that works for our professors.
And the cool part about that is it'll be a way to take the activity that happens in the lab and link it back to what happens in the classroom, because faculty will be able to go out to the site and see which of their students actually came in for help with the kinds of questions they had.
All in real time, as opposed to the once a month where we have a graduate system pulling together a spreadsheet and emailing it out.
And the last piece, we wrote down future-proofing because we can't let Conner and Nick leave until there are students who are trained to take over the system after they graduate.
So that's all we've got. So thank you all for being very attentive, and we'd like to open up for questions.
What happens when Kelly doesn't tap out?
Good question. And that happens more often than you'd think, especially at the beginning, because nobody knew what they were supposed to be doing. So when Liz or when Kelly doesn't tap out, what we do is we just have one of the students who was tutoring her just sort of double check after she leaves to make sure that she did.
In the future, we're thinking probably some sort of a timeout, because after they're removed from the tutor queue, after they've been helped, there's probably, we give them some sort of a grace period, maybe give them a couple hours or so if they want to hang around, and then just automatically remove them.
Tiny suggestion. when they queue in and you say expected duration, so you have 0 to 10 minutes, use that as your timeout loop to say, okay, if they haven't signed out at 20 minutes, sign them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The duration is how long the tutor actually spent with the student.
Well, but why can't the tutor close out that transaction?
Because then they have to get up and go to the door.
Well, no, if they've already got the device.
I mean, they could do it from their.
They could.
Because you want to capture two different things, right? You want to capture the duration of the tutoring support that was involved, but you also want to capture the duration of student occupancy in the lab. And those are really two different kinds of things, because the occupancy in the lab is going to affect our request for funding of the lab space, and the duration of the tutoring is going to affect our request for funding for departmental funds to pay for student workers. So,
And it could also be the case that after someone's done being tutored, they stay there for a while and work on their homework. So that's why the tutor can't immediately tap them out.
right.
And you bring up a really good point, and we were thinking about sort of integrating more of that into the process, so having the tutor say, okay, I'm starting to tutor this person, okay, now I'm finished, and then that would sort of trigger those two different times. But something that we really wanted to keep in mind going through this is we wanted to keep the system as sort of streamlined and out of the tutor's way as possible. So instead of having to just do the Google form and then trying to like reconcile that all back, we wanted to keep it sort of streamlined and all sort of in the same process.
Another thing that they mentioned that you didn't say that we talked about earlier is that because the students type in or tap in and let us know the courses they need help with, it puts the burden on the tutors to know who is looking for help, as opposed to putting the burden on the student to find a tutor who can help them. And
Time for one more question.
Yours.
Love this stuff, great grassroots approach to this. How do you get students into the room? I can imagine at the very beginning there wasn't much of a community, and now you have a community of people coming in regularly and collaborating on stuff. How did you kickstart that community, if you will?
Well, that was all Mark.
That sounds, yeah.
At this point, we've got a pretty steady flow of traffic coming in. Wasn't always like that, but we've done some great marketing stuff.
We give out stickers.
We brought some too.
And we brought some, we'll give you some. We've been promoting the lab through courses and also through events that we have in there. So by now, people know that this is a campus destination. It wasn't that way 2 years ago when we started, but we worked to sort of achieve that.
Mark was begging for awareness for about the first 6 months to a year, and then finally when a couple of administrators came through and a couple of trustees came through, and then it showed up on a couple of publications, and then now it's part of the regular recruiting tour and everything else, and so we're one of Bentley's now blossoms. So Bentley's happy with us, and we're happy with Bentley, and Mark's done a wonderful job in getting it going like that.
How many majors do you have?
We have about 120 to 125 majors, and we don't know their majors, most of them, until they're juniors. So in other program structures, we might have 200, but we don't know their majors until they're juniors, because Bentley doesn't allow you to declare a major
Until later.
until too late in our perspective, but anyway.
A week before graduation's okay.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, we
So-
have those too.
So for us, this was a really cool example of how students can take part in the day-to-day management of the CIS Sandbox, and if they have an idea, let them run with it and succeed. 'Cause I think part of entrepreneurship is doing things that are fun that also lead to learning and success.
All set.
Thanks.
Well done.
And the red light's still flashing. You've got time, battery.
The red light's still flashing.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't see it.
They're loud.